Hello, 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 exiles, and I think we're only a few hours away from the Blight expansion that's coming out. So I thought I'd do a really last minute tips for beginners video to basically get you ready for the Blightage that's going to come in the next few hours or so. I know I'll be up at 5 a.m. waiting for the queue of like 100 and whatever thousand people. Hopefully not that many people, but it usually happens every 3 months. So what are we here for? Well, we're here for 4 key points, which I've actually 5 key points, but there's 4 main points that I've put together that help me every single league, and I thought I'd share the wisdom of those key points. So I guess the first one to remember when you're playing Path of Exile is make sure, if you're not entirely sure of how to play a player build, or if you're not sure of how to build in the first place, is to use a build guide. And to do that, and I'll put the link up on the screen somewhere, hopefully, yeah, I'll be able to figure out how to use video editing software to do that. Usually the place where I start is builds.cc. Now, you will need Path of Building, and I'll bring Path of Building on screen now, which you should be able to see now. Essentially, Path of Building will help you figure out where you need to go as you're playing, and also you can basically play with this as you're going. And what I would suggest, as well as maybe a sub point to this first point, is as you're going, you can tweak this build a little bit and see how you go. Now, to import paste bins, as I know that's usually a bit of a sore point when you look at a build guide, you go to import, export, build. You'll go to import from paste bin here, and then you'll control C the paste bin from the build guide, and you'll control V, and you'll basically import. You'll go import, and then that'll bring everything in. Normally, so if I was going to bring in, for example, a character build that I've already done, so I'm okay with this one, we can do this. If I was going to bring in a character's build, I would actually also select the character here and then import passive tree and items and skills and whatnot. But essentially you're going to go import from paste bin, copy and paste the paste bin link into this little box here and go import. This is then going to bring you into the paste bin screen, or basically the build screen, and then that's going to have all your information in here. As you can see, I've already got my build ready to roll. I'm going to be running a champion agony crawler this season, which is a really good starter build and great for farming. So what happens if you basically start to fuck up your build is probably the next question. Well, try not to deviate too much from the build guide as a number one, as my first sort of suggestion. Number two, you can go to the community forums and you can basically ask the question in the forums of how to get it back online, or you can just refer to another build guide and, you know, import it in a paste bin like this and start playing around with it. Or you can actually play with it yourself, and you can basically, to figure out what your DPS is going to be, you can go back and you can have a look at the calcs here and whatnot. Some of these are a little bit misleading sometimes. As we can see, 527,000 versus 327, there's just some disparity there. But yeah, there's a few options you can go with. So I guess the next question is what kind of builds should you run? Well, there's a lot of argument to say that there's a whole heap of different builds you can play that are easier than others and whatnot. Usually where I like to start, and I'll just basically pull open the PoE builds website, which I'll put in the link. So normally where I start, if you're going to start off playing really depends on what you want to play, but this is we'll just close a couple of these tabs. Essentially this is poebuilds.cc, and basically you can pick whatever build you want. There's a whole heap of different ones that are obviously more popular than others. One of the builds that I would definitely suggest would be a Cyclone build. They're cheap and easy and pretty simple to understand the mechanics. I would steer clear of things like Impale mechanics at this point, but then again, Champions and Slayers are usually pretty foolproof. On top of that, Marauders, pretty much any of the Marauder builds are very powerful as well. If you're playing spell builds or spell totem builds, I would suggest arc totems, and usually you can go with a Hierophant for arc totems, or even a witch can do arc totems. Now this league being a summoner league, there are Ice Golem Manta builds like this one here by Mew. But basically you can select whatever skills you want here, whatever floats your boat. I would definitely suggest Ancestral War Chief builds as well. I know there's that Lifting Nerd Bro video that's come out, I think in the last like 16-17 hours. His builds are pretty decent. I would actually probably say his Uberlab build's not bad for a league starter build. Uberlab builds are usually pretty tanky, very easy. I maybe wouldn't go with a Facebreaker build if you don't understand what that is. Essentially a Facebreaker build is using a set of gloves called Facebreakers, and they give you a critical multiplier for not having a actual one-handed melee weapon. But anyway, I would start off with normally with totem builds or physical melee ability builds if you've not played Path of Exile before. If you want to get more complicated, I would go Arc Totems, and basically start off with spells through totems, or run an Arc Witch or something like that, which you can pretty much get to that from here if you go to spells, and then Arc Witch is the first build that you'll see. So that's pretty much it for builds. That's my basic sort of breakdown of how to do that. Now the next question is, when you're actually playing and you figured out what you want to do, is making early currency. And that one's always a bit of a don't know, what do you do? Well, you can actually sell currency pretty early in the game, and the way that you do that is you actually use PoE trading app. So poe.trade. So I'll just pull this up on screen. Hopefully this will load. So you can actually use this website here, which I actually prefer. You'll want to set it to Blight, which looks like the website's already being geared to what it needs to be. And then basically you can search here for gear that you need, but you might be asking the question of, well, how do I actually trade in the first place? Well, to get your items up on this website so that you can start trading, you would go to your stash tab, and you would say you have a Blight. Let's go to a spare tab. So this is my spare tab. You're going to right click on the tab. It's going to start like that. So it's going to look like this when you first bring it up. You're going to hit public. Now you can choose one of three options. Normally you're going to go individually priced at the start of the league, but if you want everything to be the same price, you can set a price, and everything that you drop in this tab will be that one price. So at the start of leagues, maybe 1 to 2 chaos is usually a good starting price, because no one has any currency and there's no actual economy that's working yet. Alternatively, you can go individually priced, and then when you right click on the item, you can set a price. So go exact price normally, and then you can put in, say I want to sell this for 5 chaos, and then that will pop up on PoE Trade, and then someone can buy that off you. You'll get a little notice. It'll come up in your message box, which will be down here as a whisper, which is what you'll see down here. And then basically you can sell that item for chaos. What I would also suggest, any early drops of exalts, sell them as soon as you can. Don't hoard exalts at the start of leagues. Chaos at the start of leagues is, even though in, I guess, currency trading terms, they're less valuable than exalts. Exalts are a lot more useless at the start of leagues, simply because you need that early currency boost to get your character rolling. Yeah, and pretty much any uniques that you don't need, don't hoard them at the start of league. Sell them for 1 elk, sell them for 2 elk, sell them for 1. Normally on day 1 you're going to want to sell from 1 to 2 chaos, because you'll get people, most of the time you'll get chaos drops as you go. So that would be my suggestions for making early currency. Normally on day 1 I can usually get pretty much close to sort of mid-spec if I go hard. In the case of tomorrow, I've actually got to work, so I'm not going to be able to go too hard tomorrow, but I'll be up at 5 AM for about 4 hours playing. And that'll be enough to get me started and get a fair bit of decent gear. So the next question is, when you've sort of started to progress and you get to the point of mapping, and obviously to progress through the game, you're just basically going to want to follow the build guide, and you want to kill Katava in the end of Act 10, and that's just follow the axe as you go. You'll figure it out. So what do you do when you get to mapping? Well, how do you complete your Uber Lab is really the question you'll want to ask there. Well, you can actually join a channel called Global 820. And I think I've already joined that channel. Yeah, I think I'm already in that channel. And what Global 820 is essentially Global 820 is the global chat channel for groupings. So usually what will happen is people will post up in Global 820 when they're actually when they encounter a specific portal to one of the I guess the labyrinth challenges is what you want to call them, or gauntlets. And then obviously you need the 6 gauntlets to be able to complete Uberlab. And if we go to the Aspirants Plaza, we can have a look at what those are. But Global 820 will be the way that you easily do that. The alternative is you could map farm for years and years and years, but you're not necessarily going to get every portal, and it could take a little while longer than you want. You really want to get that 4th ascendancy as soon as possible, because with a lot of builds, that's that last little sweet spot that you need to get your power spike. So to get these last trials, you're going to use the Global 820, and I'll put the script that you need to put, or not the script, but I'll put the how it's basically structured that you need to copy in a chat to enter into Global 820. Now, be mindful, Global 820 is probably going to be fully populated on the first day, and there might be other migrated channels. The other way that you can also check different channels that exist, so Global 820. So this will be the Masters, Trials, Challenges, Group Recruitment channel, and then there's obviously other channels out there as well. Normally there are, if you go on the forums, there'll also be other channels that will sprout up because Global 820 will be fully populated. But that would be my third point, is use Global 820 to sort out your ascendancies when you get to your Uber level ascendancy. So the 4th thing that I should probably mention will be mapping, which, if I remember the key, G. So mapping can be somewhat tedious. You can get stuck on these lower tier maps sometimes when you get into a new league, and that can be a real pain in the ass, and then you'll be sitting there going, well, why the fuck can't I get any new maps? Basically what you want to do is every single map that you run, you want to elk every single map, and that's going to increase your drop rate on maps. The other thing you want to do is for maps that you're missing, or maps that aren't popping up, or say for example you start in this corner and this corner but you're not getting anything for these 2 corners, what I've found in the past is you need to trigger these maps to drop by actually completing maps from the starting sequence. So to do that, you can actually just hop on poe.trade and just buy these maps, and normally they'll sell for maybe 1 help on day 1, or some really low currency like some alteration orbs or something like that. And basically just build these maps up, and then you'll start to converge around the 2nd row. Really, these yellow maps sort of drop more once you've started to complete these white maps, and then you'll get into red map zone when you've basically completed predominantly all of these yellow maps. And then once you get to this point, and once you get into the more central area of the circle, you're going to be going on poe.trade to pick up these maps, and that'll basically get you up to red mapping pretty quickly if you do it that way. The other thing I'd probably say is getting some Goldworm Knuck boots would also help significantly with getting your mapping up and going and getting increased drop rates. And Orbs of Horizon that drop pretty commonly now will also help you with that. And what an Orb of Horizon is, if you go to our stash, which just go back to our hideout and ignore that text. Damn it. So if we go to our stash, Orbs of Horizon will reforge a map item as another of the same tier. So if you need maps which are of the same tier that you don't have yet, you can chance it with Orbs of Horizon, and there's also Harbinger Orbs which will reforge a map into another higher tier map, which are really useful. And that's pretty much all there is to mapping. Mapping's pretty straightforward. The last and I guess the bonus point that I would mention is don't rush to Shaper. Shaper is not really true end. Like Shaper is part of the end game of this game, but I would say the road to level 100 is more so the end game, because the closer you get to level 100, I guess the closer you're going to get to, well, you're going to be completing all content in the game. To be honest, to get to level 100, you're either going to grind really hard or you're going to be able to do really hard content. So level 100 is a real goal. Shaper, I've read in forums and on Facebook and things like that, people get a bit salty about not being able to complete Shaper. Shaper is not really heavily strength based. You know, you need to be OP sort of god level to take Shaper down, and even Uber Elder, they're more mechanically driven. These boss fights hinge on dodging Shaper when he does his little bash thing, and then controlling the orbs so that they're on the outside of the map. And I can do a bit of a guide on how to beat Shaper if people are, want to learn how to beat Shaper. But Shaper's pretty easy. Once you're confident with Shaper, you can farm Shaper to no ends. I actually find 9 out of 10 times the mazes are harder than Shaper. But anyway, those are my 5 key points to sort of get people on the road to playing through the Blight League and assisting with beginners. If you guys have got questions about certain mechanics or anything like that, feel free to post in the comments, and even feel free to just post a general question in the comments, and fingers crossed, if I don't respond to it, other people will respond to it, and we'll help each other out as a community. Anyway, if this video helped anyone and gave any decent advice on PoE and how to start and what to look for and what to do, then yeah, like and sub, and I'll put all the links to the different stuff that I just mentioned in the last, how long have I been talking for? Ooh, 16 minutes, nearly 17 minutes. I'll put it all in the description so that you guys can find everything easily. Anyway, if you liked what you saw here, as I said, like and sub. But for now, have fun in the morning at 5 a.m. On a Saturday. Because I sure as hell will be. Anyway, I might see you there. Alright, bye.